Hey everyone, if you use braided line, you know the feeling. One second you've made a perfect cast, the next you're staring at a tangled bird's nest. Well, if you've ever felt that frustration, you are in exactly the right place. In this explainer, we are going to break down how to stop those infuriating wind knots for good.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to get into the science of why these knots even happen. Then we'll get practical with tips for mastering your cast, dialing in your gear before you're on the water, and perfecting how you rig your lure. And stick around, because we'll finish with a pro tip that's a real lifesaver.
You know, to really solve a problem, you can't just treat the symptoms. You've got to understand the root cause. So let's dive into the why behind wind knots.
So what is actually going on when your line just explodes into that classic day-ruining tangle? I promise you, it's not just bad luck. There's a reason for it.
It almost always boils down to one of two things. That's it. Either your line speed suddenly changes, like dramatically, or your line itself is physically twisting, usually because of your lure. Pretty much every tip we're about to cover is designed to prevent one of those two things from happening. And this quote right here, this is the key. Think of it like a traffic jam. The line flying off your reel is going 60 miles an hour. But if the lure up front suddenly slams on the brakes and slows to 20, well, all that line behind it has nowhere to go. It just piles up, overlaps, and tangles. That's your wind knot.
All right, so with that little bit of physics in our back pocket, let's get practical. Let's talk about the things you can do right there on the water to take control of that line speed.
These are the big three, the most common mistakes that absolutely wreck your line speed. You got the leader knot snagging on the way out, trying to punch a cast straight into a stiff wind, and just trying to muscle it instead of using a smooth, technical cast. Let's look at why each one is a knot factory.
Okay, casting into the wind is probably the #1 offender. That wind is like a giant air brake on your lure. It slows it down instantly. But the line on your spool? It has no idea. It just keeps peeling off at full speed, catches up to that slow-moving lure, and boom, you're picking out a tangle.
And look, I get it. It's tempting to try and just bomb a cast out there with all your might, but it actually works against you. A violent, jerky cast causes the line to jump off the spool way faster than the lure is traveling. Technique is everything. A smooth cast that properly loads the rod keeps the line speed consistent all the way through.
Now listen up. If you only take one single thing away from this whole explainer, please make it this 4-step process. After every single cast, just as your lure is about to land, feather the line with your finger. Then, close the bail with your hand, not by reeling. Give the line a little tug to make sure it's snug, and then start your retrieve. This habit alone will change your life.
And here's why closing the bail by hand is so crucial. When you just turn the handle, the bail snaps shut and it literally slaps the line onto the spool. That often creates a loose loop, and that one loose loop is just a ticking time bomb, waiting to fly off on your next cast and take a bunch of other coils with it.
All right, let's step off the water for a minute and head into the garage, because preventing wind knots starts before you even leave the house. Let's talk about dialing in your gear.
This one might surprise you, but your rod makes a huge difference. A rod with a really slow, flimsy tip will bounce and wobble a lot during the cast. Instead of your line shooting out straight, that wobble makes it come off in waves. The straight line behind it catches up to those waves, and you know what happens next. A fast or extra fast action rod snaps back crisply, keeping that line path straight and clean.
Spool in your reel. This is non-negotiable. First, do not overfill it. If line is spilling over the edge, it's just going to fall off in clumps and cause a mess. Second, look at how the line is laying. Is it bunched at the top or bottom? Most reels come with little washers you can add or remove under the spool to get that perfectly even, level lay. It's critical.
Here's another gear-related speed killer. Let's say you're using a light, 10-pound braid. You don't want to pair that with a big, heavy 40-pound leader. Why? Well, that thick leader has a ton of wind resistance. It's basically a mini parachute on the end of your line, slowing everything down and causing that light braid behind it to pile up. Okay, so we've covered line speed. Now let's talk about the other big culprit, line twist. And 99% of the time, that twist starts right at the end of your line, at the lure itself. If you fish soft plastics, this is for you. If that lure is not rigged perfectly, absolutely straight on the hook, it's guaranteed to spin and helicopter through the water on every retrieve. Each one of those rotations puts another twist in your line. After a few casts, that twist travels all the way up to your reel, and your next cast is doomed.
So pay close attention when you're rigging. It's a game of millimeters. The hook point has to go in the dead center of the nose, and it has to come out the dead center of the back. If there is any kind of curve or kink in that plastic once it's on the hook, it's going to spin. It's worth that extra 5 seconds to get it perfect.
So, what about those times when spinning is just part of the game? How do you fight line twist then?
This is where a good swivel becomes your best friend. If you're fishing live bait in a strong current, or you're throwing something that's designed to spin, like a spoon, you need a high-quality ball-bearing swivel. It acts as a buffer, allowing the lure to spin its heart out without twisting up your main line.
All right, before we wrap this all up, I've got one last pro tip for you. Now, this one isn't really about prevention, it's more like damage control. Because, let's be real, even if you do everything right, a knot can still happen occasionally.
Ever seen those silicone-based line conditioners, like Real Magic? Well, they actually work. Just give your spool of braid a quick spray before you go fishing. It makes the line super slick and really cuts down on friction as it comes off the spool.
And this right here is the real magic. Sure, it might help you cast a little farther, but the main benefit is that when you do get that inevitable knot, the lubricated line just slides against itself so much easier. It can turn what would have been a 5-minute surgery into a quick 30-second fix. That's more time with your lure in the water.
So at the end of the day, here's what it all comes down to. Wind knots are not random acts of chaos. They are a direct result of a breakdown in line management. Every single thing you do, from how you spool your reel, to your casting motion, to how you close your bail, it all matters. If you make a conscious effort to manage your line speed and prevent twist, you will spend a whole lot more time fishing and way less time untangling knots.